There's a certain kind of mind that moves through the world quietly, observing rather than participating, listening rather than speaking, thinking rather than reacting. These minds notice details that others miss, the subtle shifts in tone during conversation, the hidden patterns in everyday life, the contradictions in human behavior that often go unnoticed. To the person outside, it may seem as though they are distant, perhaps aloof, even disconnected. But in truth, this silent observation comes from a place of depth, a constant awareness that their mind is processing far more than the world around them can ever contain. They see layers where others see only surfaces, and in those layers, they live a life of both insight and isolation. From early childhood, they have felt the weight of difference. While others laughed at simple jokes or accepted easy answers, they asked questions that seemed unnecessary, probing deeper into ideas that left others uncomfortable. Their curiosity often made them appear strange or overly serious, and as a result, many learned to hide it, to wear masks of normalcy to avoid standing out too much. Yet the mask never feels completely natural, and the constant effort to blend and creates a quiet fatigue that few ever understand. It is not just curiosity that sets them apart. It is a heightened sense of awareness, an emotional depth that amplifies everything around them. Ordinary interactions, small talk, casual friendships, they can feel exhausting or even meaningless. They crave conversation that challenges them, that opens doors to new perspectives. Yet such interactions are rare and fleeting. And when these opportunities do arise, they leave a mark, a fleeting sense of connection that quickly fades back into the monotony of misunderstanding. This emotional sensitivity is both a gift and a curse. It allows them to empathize deeply, to feel the unspoken tension in a room, to understand the motives that drive human behavior. It also makes ordinary life feel heavy, full of subtle disappointments and misconnections. The world moves with a certain rhythm of simplicity, and when their mind refuses to follow that rhythm, friction is inevitable. They notice hypocrisy, they sense dishonesty, they detect the shallow intentions behind smiles, and these realizations isolate them further. And yet, even in the midst of this solitude, there is a quiet strength. The very awareness that separates them from others also equips them with a kind of insight that many never achieve. They are constantly learning, constantly refining their understanding, quietly building a private universe of thought and reflection that is richer than the surface-level experiences most people settle for. In that solitude, they cultivate a resilience that is invisible yet powerful, a deep internal world that serves as both refuge and laboratory for their intellect. Still, there's a tension between the desire to connect and the need to withdraw. They long for companionship, for people who understand not just their words, but the impulses behind them, the subtleties of thought that escape ordinary notice. Yet such companionship is rare, and the disappointment of shallow connections reinforces the cycle of retreat. They might attend social gatherings, nod politely, contribute in expected ways, and yet leave feeling as if they have been spectators rather than participants. This duality, wanting to belong, yet feeling alienated by the very act of trying, creates a subtle, almost invisible loneliness, one that is heavy not in the absence of people, but in the mismatch of depth. The challenge is compounded by the constant pressure to conform. Society values certain behaviors, certain thought patterns, certain ways of being, and those who diverge often face subtle judgment or overt misunderstanding. Intelligent minds resist conformity not out of rebellion, but because the patterns demanded by the majority feel restrictive, arbitrary, or even nonsensical. Following the crowd may bring temporary ease, but it comes at the cost of authenticity, a cost that is too high for minds that measure life by meaning rather than appearances. In this resistance, isolation is inevitable. Yet even in isolation, there's a glimmer of hope. These minds are constantly seeking kindred spirits, people who move with similar rhythm, who perceive similar layers, who find comfort in depth. Such connections are rare, but when they appear, they are intensely rewarding, a brief yet powerful sense of belonging that validates all the quiet struggle. They remind the lonely genius that their way of seeing the world is not wrong, merely uncommon. For those who live in this state, the mask of normalcy becomes second nature. They learn to navigate ordinary spaces without revealing the vast, turbulent landscape inside them. They laugh at jokes they do not find amusing, nod at ideas that feel shallow, and maintain a polite distance from conversations that offer nothing more than repetition and social ritual. This masking is exhausting, yet it is a skill that allows them to move through the world without constant confrontation, preserving their energy for the moments that truly matter. Ultimately, the life of an intelligent mind is a paradox. Isolation is inevitable, yet it is intertwined with insight. Misunderstanding is common, yet it coexists with a unique clarity of perception. The social discomfort they feel is balanced by an internal richness, a quiet power that emerges from reflection, awareness, and depth. Their differences, once felt as burdens, can be reframed as strengths, tools that allow them to see what others cannot, to understand what remains hidden, and to navigate life with a subtle, unspoken wisdom. And so, the lonely genius moves through life quietly, often unseen, yet fully aware. They may never fit neatly into the mold society offers, but in their solitude, they build a life of depth and insight, a life where silence is not emptiness, but a space for thought, observation, and quiet mastery. This chapter of isolation is not a story of failure, but a prelude to understanding, a recognition that the mind that cannot fit in is, in many ways, the mind most capable of truly seeing the world. There's a peculiar clarity that comes with thinking differently, a perspective that sees the world not as it is presented, but as it truly is beneath the surface. For minds that are naturally intelligent, this clarity often sets them apart, making them feel as though they are walking through life with a subtle but constant dissonance. While others accept conventions without question, they probe, they analyze, they notice contradictions that most would ignore. This way of seeing is not a choice. It is a compulsion, a lens through which everything is filtered, and it can make ordinary interactions feel strained, confusing, or even tiresome. The act of questioning becomes second nature. Every statement, every societal norm, every casual assertion is met with an internal inquiry. Why? How? What does this truly mean? To those around them, this constant questioning may appear as skepticism or cynicism, but for the intelligent mind, it is simply a method of understanding, a search for truth that cannot be silenced. This relentless curiosity often isolates them because most people are comfortable with simplicity, with answers that suffice rather than illuminate. They, however, cannot rest until they have peeled back the layers, and this difference in perspective creates a natural separation between them and the majority. Being aware of more than most is both a gift and a burden. They notice subtleties, patterns, and inconsistencies that others overlook, which allows them to see consequences before they happen, intentions before they are expressed, and truths that remain hidden in plain sight. Yet this awareness comes with a cost. Life, as it is structured for the majority, favors simplicity and ease of conformity. Intelligent minds, constantly navigating the complex layers of reality, often find themselves alienated, their insights misunderstood or dismissed. The weight of seeing what others cannot can feel lonely, like carrying a secret no one else shares, a knowledge that cannot easily be spoken without being met with confusion or resistance. There's a feeling unique to those who constantly operate outside the mainstream, a sensation of always being one step removed, always noticing what others fail to see. This sensation can be both exhilarating and isolating. On one hand, it offers a sense of clarity, a window into a world that is largely invisible to the casual observer. On the other, it reinforces the sense of separation, the quiet awareness that most people will never fully grasp the depth of what is noticed, considered, or pondered. Even in a crowded room, they may feel alone because the conversation rarely reaches the layers where their mind dwells. Social misalignment is a recurring theme in the life of the intelligent mind. While they desire connection, they are often frustrated by the superficiality of most interactions. Small talk, casual jokes, and conventional storytelling may feel hollow, repetitive, or unfulfilling. Attempts to engage often lead to polite nods and quick dismissals, leaving them with a lingering sense that they have been heard but not understood, that their attempts at depth have touched nothing meaningful. This repeated friction fosters a habit of retreat, a tendency to withdraw from shallow engagements in favor of solitude, where thinking, reflection, and authentic observation can occur without interference. Overthinking is a term often applied to them, sometimes with judgment, but it is not overthinking in the common sense. It is analysis, reflection, a careful parsing of information and experience that allows them to understand nuances others cannot. What appears as hesitation or indecision is often a thoughtful examination of layers, possibilities, and consequences. Their minds dwell in possibilities rather than certainties, exploring hypothetical outcomes, weighing motives, and imagining scenarios that might seem excessive to those who are content with immediate answers. This process can be exhausting, but also sharpens insight and builds internal wisdom that others rarely achieve. The struggle is rarely visible. It exists quietly, beneath the surface of everyday interactions, in the pauses, in the thoughtful glances, in the moments when they appear disengaged or absent-minded. These minds carry an invisible weight, a continuous balancing act between their inner universe and the outer world, between the understanding they possess and the inability of most to recognize it. They learn to mask this weight in public, to smile at jokes they do not find amusing, to participate in rituals that feel hollow, and to maintain a facade of normalcy while their inner world hums with quiet, constant activity. Yet there is also a profound reward in this outsider perspective. Living at the edge of conventional understanding allows them to notice opportunities, patterns, and truths that others overlook. Their detachment from conformity becomes a source of freedom, a vantage point from which they can navigate life without being bound by the pressures, expectations, and assumptions that govern most people. They can see cause and effect before it is obvious, detect pretense where others see honesty, and recognize hidden meaning in the simplest events. This rare perspective offers not just insight, but the ability to shape thought, strategy, and understanding in ways that conventional minds cannot. In their moments of solitude, there is clarity and calm. Distance from shallow engagement creates a space for reflection, creativity, and self-discovery. It is in these moments that the outsider mind thrives, building understanding, forging connections within itself, and nurturing a sense of identity that is independent of societal approval. Solitude is not loneliness. It is a laboratory of the mind, a place where ideas can flourish unobserved, where thoughts can take shape in their own time and on their own terms. Finally, the outsider mindset is not a state of deficiency, but one of unique capability. It allows them to perceive what is hidden, to question what is unquestioned, and to move through life with a perspective that is at once more cautious, more aware, and more profound. While society may not always recognize or reward this approach, it is precisely this perspective that offers a depth of understanding few others can attain. The challenges of being out of sync with the world are real, but so too are the advantages: clarity of thought, a unique perspective on human nature, and the quiet, steady accumulation of insight that shapes not just knowledge but wisdom. The intelligent mind that inhabits this outsider space learns to embrace the tension between desire and isolation, between understanding and misunderstanding. It is a delicate balance, a rhythm of observation, reflection, and selective engagement. And though it may never fully belong in conventional circles, it possesses a richness of thought and a depth of awareness that transforms solitude into a powerful, almost sacred space for growth, insight, and quiet mastery of life. To possess a mind that notices more than others is both a blessing and a weight. The intelligent mind moves through life with heightened perception, constantly observing layers that most people either cannot or choose not to see. It notices the contradictions in human behavior, the subtleties of emotion, and the undercurrents of intention that shape every interaction. Every smile, every gesture, every casual remark is filtered through a lens that is always active, always analyzing, always questioning. This awareness creates a depth of understanding that is rare, but it also imposes a quiet burden, one that is seldom recognized by those around them. From the very beginning, they are attuned to details that escape others. They see the unspoken tension in a room, the subtle shifts in someone's tone, the unacknowledged discomfort in social situations. They recognize patterns that others dismiss, connections that seem invisible to the casual eye. While these observations provide clarity and insight, they also reinforce a sense of separation. Life becomes a constant negotiation between the richness of perception and the frustration of knowing that most people are not attuned to the same frequencies. This disparity creates a quiet tension, a subtle loneliness born not from absence of company, but from the absence of true understanding. With this heightened awareness comes the ability to see through facades. They quickly sense pretense, detect disingenuous behavior, and perceive intentions that are often hidden beneath layers of politeness or social convention. Where others accept appearances at face value, they probe deeper, intuitively questioning motives and seeking underlying truth. This can make ordinary interactions uncomfortable, both for them and for those around them. People often react defensively or withdraw when they sense their masks are being perceived, leaving the intelligent mind in a perpetual state of cautious observation, always aware but rarely fully engaged. The burden of awareness extends beyond social perception. It touches their own self-reflection and internal life. They are conscious of their thoughts, constantly evaluating, analyzing, and questioning their own beliefs, motivations, and decisions. This self-awareness is a double-edged sword. It fosters growth and understanding, but also introduces an ongoing internal scrutiny that can be exhausting. Every choice, every reaction, every desire is considered not just in isolation, but within the broader context of its implications. They rarely act without thought, yet this deliberation can slow them down in a world that rewards immediacy and conformity. Emotional overload is a common companion to this heightened perception. They absorb more than the average mind, not just facts, but feelings, moods, and subtle energies. The happiness of others, the tension in a room, the unspoken struggles of those around them. They feel it all, often silently. This sensitivity enriches their empathy and insight, yet also magnifies the fatigue of social interaction. Ordinary conversations can become draining, environments chaotic, and relationships complicated. The world is heavy for the aware mind, not because it is harsher than for others, but because every detail carries significance, and every moment is layered with meaning. At times, life feels like a constant struggle to reconcile what they see with what others accept. There is an innate discomfort with simplicity, a resistance to surface-level answers, and a persistent desire to uncover truth. This pursuit is noble and enlightening, but it isolates them from those who are content to remain unexamined. The intelligent mind often experiences a paradoxical loneliness, surrounded by people yet profoundly alone in perception, longing for connection while recognizing the rarity of genuine understanding. The burden extends into the realm of expectations as well. They often hold themselves to exacting standards, aware of the consequences of every action, every choice. Mistakes are not merely errors. They are lessons, warnings, and reflections of internal principles. This self-imposed accountability fosters discipline and growth, but it also adds pressure, intensifying the solitude of the intelligent mind. The awareness of complexity in life means that the simplest acts are never truly simple. They are considered, weighed, and understood in layers that others rarely even imagine. Yet in the midst of this burden, there is a remarkable strength. Awareness, while isolating, allows them to navigate life with precision and insight. They anticipate challenges, recognize opportunities, and understand human behavior on a level that many cannot access. Their detachment from superficiality becomes a source of wisdom, enabling them to move through social and professional landscapes with a nuanced understanding. Though the path may feel lonely, it equips them with tools for thoughtful action and deliberate choice. The intelligent mind learns to balance this constant awareness with moments of retreat. Solitude is not merely a refuge, it is a necessity. In quiet spaces, away from the noise of superficial expectation, they can reflect, analyze, and recharge. Here, the burden transforms into a resource, a space where thought deepens, understanding crystallizes, and the mind can operate at its fullest potential. In these moments, what once felt heavy becomes powerful, a reminder that their perception, far from being a flaw, is a unique strength. Finally, the burden of awareness is inseparable from the gift of insight. The intelligent mind lives in a world that is both richer and more challenging than the average experience. They navigate layers of reality that often remain hidden to others. And while this awareness can be isolating, it also provides clarity, wisdom, and a perspective that is invaluable. They learn that solitude is not a punishment, but a companion. That understanding is both a responsibility and a privilege, and that their heightened perception, though demanding, is the source of quiet mastery over a world most never fully see. In embracing this burden, they find a subtle freedom. To perceive deeply is to move through life with both caution and courage, to recognize what is fleeting and what is essential, to understand both the light and the shadow in people and in situations. Awareness may separate them from the crowd, but it also grants them vision, resilience, and a profound internal strength. They discover that being different is not a deficit, but a vantage point, a place from which the world is not only observed, but understood in its most intricate and beautiful forms. Even the most intelligent minds feel the pull of connection, the quiet yearning to belong. Yet this desire is always tangled with contradiction. They long for companionship, for understanding, for people who see more than what is said on the surface, and yet the very traits that make them so perceptive often push others away. The paradox of belonging is that it exists as both a hope and a challenge. Every attempt to fit in feels partially successful at best, yet fully satisfying connections are rare, fleeting, and often misunderstood by the world at large. From early interactions, they sense that they operate on a different wavelength. While others navigate social cues with ease, intelligent minds often notice layers beneath the casual greetings and superficial conversations. They recognize the undercurrents of emotion, the subtle patterns of thought, and the unspoken expectations that shape behavior. While this awareness is a gift, it complicates relationships because most people do not, or cannot, recognize the depth beneath the ordinary. As a result, these minds often feel a quiet misalignment, a sense of being in the wrong rhythm, even while surrounded by people. Surface-level friendships are a frequent source of tension. Casual bonds, built on convenience, politeness, or shared activities, rarely satisfy. While others may feel fulfilled by these connections, the intelligent mind often experiences them as hollow, like touching a reflection without seeing the depth behind it. The gestures, the small talk, the repetition of familiar routines, all these may feel comforting to some, but to the deeply aware, they create a lingering sense of unfulfillment. Yet even in disappointment, there is a subtle recognition that human connection is complex and that rarity of depth does not imply impossibility, only scarcity. Moments of true connection, when they do occur, are profoundly impactful. A conversation that resonates, a shared insight, an unspoken understanding. These moments are rare, but they are what intelligent minds live for. They reveal that the depth they seek is not imagined, that there are minds that align with their own in thought, perception, and understanding. These interactions are intensely rewarding precisely because they are scarce. They're proof that the feeling of being different does not mean being alone. Only the connection must be sought more deliberately and patiently than most people ever learn to. Yet even when connections are found, the tension remains. Intelligent minds often struggle to balance their need for authenticity with the desire for acceptance. To fully belong, one must sometimes simplify, soften, or adjust in ways that feel unnatural. Yet to adjust too much is to lose the essence of the self that makes connection meaningful in the first place. This delicate negotiation between fitting in and staying true to one's mind creates the paradox. Belonging is possible, but only if it does not come at the cost of identity. Isolation, in this context, is not always a negative state. It offers space for reflection, growth, and self-understanding. When the world does not provide depth, solitude becomes a companion rather than a punishment. In quiet, intelligent minds can explore ideas, imagine possibilities, and nurture their own unique perspective without the constraints of conformity. Solitude is where their creativity, thoughtfulness, and insight thrive. It is where they refine the understanding of themselves and the world, building an inner foundation that strengthens them for the rare but meaningful connections they do experience. The paradox extends further into social dynamics. Being part of a group often requires adherence to unspoken rules and cultural norms. Intelligent minds, attuned to nuance and inconsistency, frequently recognize these rules as arbitrary, restrictive, or even contradictory. While they can follow them when necessary, they do so with awareness, which often creates distance. Their compliance is pragmatic, not wholehearted. This discrepancy between inner perspective and outward behavior reinforces the sense of being an outsider, even in situations where acceptance appears possible. Yet the experience of misalignment is balanced by the possibility of finding one's tribe. Rare individuals exist who resonate on similar frequencies, who recognize depth, who share curiosity and insight. Finding such people is neither easy nor guaranteed, but the discovery is transformative. In their presence, the tension of difference diminishes. The feeling of being out of step with the world fades temporarily, replaced by a sense of belonging that validates the uniqueness of perception and intellect. These connections are not frequent, but they are powerful, proving that belonging does not require conformity. It requires alignment. Ultimately, the paradox of belonging teaches that the desire for connection is inseparable from the need for authenticity. The intelligent mind must navigate between the pull of social integration and the push of individuality. Belonging is not about blending in completely, but about finding spaces, moments, and people where their depth is not only tolerated but appreciated. This realization transforms the experience of isolation, reframing it as selective rather than exclusionary, deliberate rather than accidental. Solitude becomes strategic, and connection becomes meaningful precisely because it is chosen and rare. In embracing this paradox, intelligent minds develop patience, resilience, and discernment. They learn that connection cannot be forced, that understanding is earned, and that true companionship is not measured by quantity, but by quality. The longing for belonging, once a source of frustration and pain, evolves into a guiding principle. Seek depth, choose authenticity, and accept that the world will always be a mixture of alignment and misalignment. From this awareness emerges a quiet confidence, a calm acceptance that while they may never fully fit into conventional social molds, they can create spaces of understanding, intimacy, and meaningful interaction where it truly matters. In the end, the paradox of belonging is both challenge and gift. It teaches that connection is rare, that understanding is profound, and that depth cannot be rushed. The intelligent mind navigates this tension with subtlety, finding strength in solitude, insight in observation, and fulfillment in carefully chosen bonds. Belonging is possible, but it comes not from conformity, but from alignment, from recognizing that true connection is not about being the same, but about resonating deeply, even if only with a few. This balance between isolation and connection is the secret path of the intelligent mind, the rhythm that guides them through life with both awareness and grace. The solitude that once felt like a burden can, when understood, become a source of strength. Intelligent minds often spend much of their lives feeling out of step with the world, observing rather than participating, noticing rather than conforming. Within that distance lies an extraordinary opportunity, the chance to cultivate a life driven not by external approval, but by internal clarity and purpose. The very awareness that once isolated them now becomes the foundation of resilience, creativity, and influence. To transform isolation into power, the first step is to reframe it. Loneliness is not a failure or a flaw. It is a space for reflection and self-discovery. The intelligent mind learns to embrace this space, to recognize that being apart from the crowd is not a weakness but a sign of depth. In solitude, they have the freedom to explore ideas without compromise, to think expansively, and to observe the world with a clarity unavailable to those caught in the noise of social conformity. What once felt like deprivation becomes a sanctuary, a laboratory for thought and quiet mastery. Self-reflection is the heart of this transformation. In the absence of distraction, the mind examines patterns of thought, emotional responses, and the motives behind actions. This introspection is disciplined, deliberate, and revealing. By understanding themselves, intelligent minds gain insight into the human condition at large. They see the ways in which society functions, the subtleties of human interaction, and the often hidden forces shaping behavior. This awareness allows them to move through the world strategically, making decisions informed not just by instinct, but by deep comprehension. With awareness comes intellectual independence. The intelligent mind does not rely on the majority to define reality or dictate values. Detached from conventional pressures, they are free to think critically, to question assumptions, and to develop a perspective that is uniquely their own. This independence can be intimidating to others, but empowers the individual to act with autonomy and intentionality. They are not swayed by fleeting trends or shallow approval. Instead, their actions reflect their internal compass, guided by reason, insight, and conviction. Embracing a unique voice is another aspect of this transformation. The intelligent mind learns that authenticity is more valuable than conformity. To speak, write, or create from a place of true understanding is to wield influence without compromise. Those attuned to depth are rarely silent. They express their insight in subtle ways that ripple through their surroundings. Their words and actions resonate because they are grounded in clarity, not in performative gestures or imitation. Authenticity, once cultivated, becomes a quiet yet undeniable power. Observation, refined over years of thoughtful solitude, is converted into action. The intelligent mind can recognize patterns, anticipate outcomes, and navigate complex social landscapes with precision. What was once a burden, the constant awareness of human behavior and societal dynamics, becomes a tool for strategy and influence. By translating insight into action, they bridge the gap between internal understanding and external impact, demonstrating that isolation is not separation from the world, but preparation for meaningful engagement with it. Patience is a subtle but crucial tool. Intelligent minds learn to wait for the right opportunities, interactions, and connections. They understand that meaningful relationships cannot be rushed, that insight takes time to bear fruit, and that influence is most effective when deliberate rather than reactionary. Patience, cultivated in solitude, allows them to act decisively when circumstances align while avoiding unnecessary compromise. Influence, when exercised by the intelligent mind, is understated. It does not require loud assertion. It is the quiet effect of insight, the subtle shaping of thought through understanding. By observing deeply and acting intentionally, they inspire, guide, and affect change without needing recognition. This influence is both ethical and effective, grounded in wisdom rather than ego, and it exemplifies the power that emerges from transforming isolation into purposeful engagement. Redefining success is part of the journey. For intelligent minds, achievement is not measured by popularity, material gain, or social approval. True success is the alignment of thought, action, and values. It is the cultivation of knowledge, the deepening of understanding, and the creation of meaningful impact. By stepping outside conventional metrics, they free themselves from pressures that stifle depth and creativity. Their accomplishments, though sometimes invisible to the majority, carry a weight that is profound precisely because it is self-directed and authentic. Ultimately, the intelligent mind learns to live fully apart, yet fully engaged. Isolation is not a void, it is a foundation. Observation is not passive, it is a tool. Awareness is not a burden, it is power. By embracing solitude, refining insight, and acting with intentionality, the mind that once struggled with difference transforms that struggle into mastery. Life is no longer a series of compromises or attempts to fit in, but a deliberate navigation guided by clarity, authenticity, and subtle influence. In this transformation, the genius that once felt alone discovers resilience and a quiet mastery that shapes both self and world with wisdom and precision.